At some point in your life, you became something people didn't expect. Maybe it was gradual, a series of quiet decisions, accumulated effort, a version of yourself that slowly outgrew the frame others had built around you. Or maybe it happened faster than anyone anticipated, including you. Either way, something shifted. Not just in you, in the way certain people looked at you, in the way they spoke to you, in the way they stopped speaking to you at all. And if you're honest with yourself, you've noticed it. The conversations that used to flow freely now carry a faint tension underneath. The people who used to be effortlessly warm now measure their words. The ones who once celebrated you now find reasons to qualify everything you do. You haven't wronged them. You haven't changed in any way that should have caused this. But envy doesn't need a reason. It needs a target. And once you become someone who has something, or has become something, that others want and haven't achieved, you step into a role you never auditioned for. What follows is not about self-pity, and it is not about blame. It is about understanding a force that operates silently in almost every social environment, that reshapes relationships without a single honest conversation, and that most people experience, but almost no one talks about directly. Envy changes the way people treat you. Not all at once, not obviously, but consistently, and in ways that follow a recognizable pattern once you know what you're looking at. Envy is one of the oldest and least understood emotions in human psychology. It is not the same as admiration. Admiration looks at what someone has and feels inspired. Envy looks at the same thing and feels diminished. That distinction matters, because when someone envies you, your success doesn't motivate them. It threatens them. It functions as evidence of a gap between where they are and where they believe they should be. And since that gap is painful to look at directly, the mind redirects. It turns the discomfort outward, toward you. Psychologists describe envy as an invidious emotion, one that is fundamentally relational. It cannot exist in isolation. It requires a comparison, and you, simply by existing and moving forward, provide the comparison they cannot stop making. What makes this particularly difficult is that envy rarely announces itself. The person experiencing it often doesn't fully recognize it as envy. They experience it as justified criticism, as concern, as a sense that something about you is off. But the behavior it produces follows a consistent logic. And that logic is what we're going to examine now, the reasons. Because envy needs to reduce what it cannot obtain. The first thing envy does is go to work on your credibility. Not loudly, not with a direct attack. Envy is too self-aware for that. It knows that open hostility would reveal itself. Instead, it operates through reduction, a well-placed doubt about your judgment, a question about whether your success was really earned, a gentle suggestion offered to others that there's more to the story than what you present. This happens because the envious mind cannot comfortably coexist with your achievement at full size. Something has to give, and since the person cannot take the achievement away, they attempt to make it smaller. Because envy turns your presence into a mirror they didn't ask for. When someone envies you, being around you stops being neutral. Every interaction becomes a comparison they can't switch off. Your confidence reminds them of their hesitation. Your progress highlights their stagnation. Your clarity makes their confusion harder to ignore. You haven't said anything provocative. You haven't done anything aggressive. You've simply shown up as yourself. This is why envious people often create distance without explanation, because envy rewrites the rules of the relationship. Before envy enters a relationship, there is a kind of unspoken contract. You are allowed to succeed. You are allowed to grow. Envy tears that contract up and writes a new one. Under the new contract, your wins require justification. Your visibility requires apology. Your confidence is treated as arrogance. The rules have changed, but they changed quietly. The relationship continues to exist in its familiar form, but the emotional architecture underneath it has been quietly rearranged. Because envy needs an audience to feel complete. Private envy is painful. But envy that can be shared, validated, and distributed becomes something the person can manage. This is why envious behavior so frequently moves through other people. The critical remark made to a mutual friend. The story told about you that carries a slight distortion. Envy seeks company. If the person can bring others to a similar view of you, the internal gap feels less like a personal failing and more like an accurate assessment of reality. Shared perspectives feel like truth, and you, standing at the center of it, often can't trace what changed. You only feel the result. A room that used to be warm that has slowly become something else. Because envy mistakes your consistency for provocation. One of the strangest effects of being envied is discovering that your ordinary behavior has become offensive. You didn't change your tone. You didn't elevate your language or amplify your presence. You simply continued being who you've been. But now, that consistency reads differently to certain people. Your discipline looks like a rebuke of their disorder. Your focus reads as indifference to their struggle. Your refusal to complain about your life feels like a kind of aggression. Envy is uniquely sensitive to consistency. It can tolerate occasional success. What it struggles to absorb is sustained forward movement. And so the person begins to interpret your behavior through a lens you didn't hand them. Your presence becomes charged with meaning it doesn't carry. You begin to feel watched in a way that has nothing to do with admiration, monitored for evidence of the flaws that would restore the balance, studied for the crack in the foundation that would make the comparison feel more equal. This is exhausting to be near, because envy eventually runs out of patience for the mask. Envy is a sustained performance. Maintaining the appearance of goodwill requires effort, and effort, over time, degrades. This is why the behavior of envious people tends to escalate gradually. The small comments become sharper. The mask slips in moments of stress, or particularly visible success. A comment that reveals more than it was supposed to. A reaction that doesn't match the situation. These are not random failures. They are the natural result of a sustained internal tension that has no legitimate outlet. The feeling continues building until the container can no longer hold it cleanly. And what leaks out is rarely dramatic. It is precise. It targets exactly what you have. How to carry this without letting it change you. Understanding envy is not the same as being protected from it, but it does change how you carry it. First, do not make yourself smaller to manage their discomfort. The instinct to tone down is understandable, but it teaches the wrong lesson. Second, resist the pull toward justification. Envy interprets your explanations as defensiveness and your silence as arrogance. Just continue, without apology. Third, learn to distinguish between people who are challenged by your growth and people who are threatened by it. They do not deserve the same investment. Your growth is not a problem to be solved. It is a filter. It will show you, over time, exactly who belongs in the next chapter. Reflective closing. Envy is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of distance. The distance between where you are and where someone else believes they should be. You did not create that distance by doing anything wrong. You created it by doing something right, consistently, patiently, and without waiting for permission. And the people who cannot tolerate that distance will make their presence felt. Through the slow erosion of warmth, the quiet rewriting of your story. Now you have a name for it. Use it not as a weapon, but as a compass, to understand what's happening around you, to stop internalizing behavior that was never really about you, and to keep moving. Observe more, speak less, and watch who changes. If this gave language to something you've been living through, leave in the comments, "I choose clarity," because that is always where it begins.